Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Would Brexit be a way of controlling immigration?
Would Brexit, Britain's exit from the European Union, be a way of controlling immigration? What's your view before we go to the panel? Are you in favour of Brexit to control immigration? Or?
Well, I'd like to hear the panel's opinions
Well, of
first.
course, yes. But let's hear yours. Be brave.
Right. Well, I've spent all my working life working for the NHS. I have seen the situation or the establishment evolve totally from the day I started to the day I retired, and not always in a positive way. I have seen many immigrants or foreigners or whatever you want to call them come and contribute wonderfully to our society. They have brought specialisms, they have contributed without any question, but something has to be done because our public services can't cope.
And you think that leaving the EU might be the way?
It might be. I'm yet to be persuaded conclusively, but
All right.
it might be.
We'll come back to the end and see if you're persuaded. Romesh, you start on this.
Well, I mean, my biggest issue with regards to this issue is the fact that all of the sides in this argument seem to be using scaremongering tactics to, with regards to immigration. Mr Farage said that we need to get control of our borders because if we don't, then there'll be an increase in terrorism. I think that's exactly the type of scaremongering that worries me, and those kind of sentiments I find frightening. You know, you look at terrorist atrocities that have happened in England, for example, the 7/7 bombers. Three of the four of those were British-born. You know, the people that murdered Lee Rigby, both of those British-born. So you're looking at a situation here where people are cultivating a distrust of immigrants and immigration and ignoring what they've contributed to the UK in order to create this sense of fear so that all of a sudden we don't want immigration to happen. And it's not just that side, you know, also David Cameron's guilty of it as well. I saw a speech where you were talking about, you know, this sort of fear factor shouldn't come into play with regards to this debate. But David Cameron's unacceptable sort of comments about this jungle moving from Calais to the south coast, should we go ahead with exiting Europe, is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I want to hear proper economic arguments. I don't want to hear, oh, Kent's going to look a bit dodgy if this happens. Do you know what I mean? I want actual real arguments. And if that's not scaremongering, I don't know what it is. The fact of the matter is that it was such a good example of scaremongering that UKIP accused David Cameron of scaremongering, and that's their territory.
Nigel Farage.
Well, there are lots of arguments about the pros and cons of immigration. And, you know, Jennifer talked about the National Health Service. I mean, it's very interesting that cancer specialist Angus Dalgleish was saying this weekend that the reality is that we have a National Health Service now that is available to 508 million people. Now, that's not the number that are using it, but it's available. And actually, you're right. Whether we look at hospitals or we look at primary school places, our public services cannot cope with a British population that is now rising by 500,000 people every single year. But that was not the question. That was not the question. And the fact that two of the Paris bombers got in through the Greek islands posing as refugees, again, important though that debate is, and I certainly wouldn't want to scaremonger over it, but I do think we should protect ourselves against those things if we possibly can. But the question, and it's a key question, and it's a key word, was, is Brexit the only way that we can control it? It's the only way, Jennifer, that we can control immigration, because the fact is we are locked into something where we have a complete open door to 500 million people. That is a fact. Any one of those 500 million people can come to Britain. Now, when we were in a political union with France and the Netherlands and Germany and countries that were roughly similar education standards, income standards, it wasn't a problem. But now we've let in countries that are very much poorer in Eastern Europe, and we see the miseries that the South are going through with a Eurozone that is about to go back into crisis. We realise that it's actually irresponsible to have a total open door. We can't predict what public services we need. We've no idea within the nearest couple of million who'll be here within the next 5 years. And what I want to do, and I'm not against immigration, but I'm for controlled immigration, I want us to exit political union, to have a trade agreement, but in terms of immigration policy, I want us to have an Australian-style point system, where the people that come to Britain have got skills to bring.
OK. Stephen Crabb, perhaps you'd answer the accusation too that the Prime Minister himself was scaremongering, talking about what would happen if we left the EU.
Let me just address the point that Nigel made, where he tried to say, very innocently looking, that he's not against immigration. He's the man who said that he feels uncomfortable hearing foreign accents on the train. He's a he's a master at pressing the button of fear.
You'd better Welsh if you want. Stephen, so do you support uncontrolled immigration? Are you happy if large sections of our towns and cities are non-English speaking? So you feel totally comfortable with that, do you?
Yeah, well,
I mean, if you do,
you'd better Welsh if you want.
Well, I'd be happy with that. That's fine.
I don't feel uncomfortable on commuter lines, as you described, hearing foreign accents being spoken.
So you're happy with uncontrolled immigration and an open door to 500 million people? That's fine. That's fine. That is your government. That is your government policy.
Let me come on to this.
If we're to have a debate, let's have
Mr.
Crabb's view as well as yours.
So,
go on.
We just heard it with the question about the steel industry. Nigel tries to reduce everything to a secret formula of Brexit. There is no problem out there that Britain is facing that can't be solved with this potion in a bottle marked Brexit. And it's nonsense. The pressures of migration that Britain, Europe, North America, Australia are facing doesn't change, won't change whether we're in or out of Europe. The world is on the move, and that is the truth of it. And one of the biggest factors that's drawing people to this country is the fact that we have such a dynamic economy. We are creating new jobs in this economy at such a faster pace compared to other countries in Europe. And the vast majority of people who are coming to this country, Nigel, want to come here to work. They're bringing their skills, their talents, their work ethic, and that's a boost for our economy. What we need to address, which is exactly why we've gone down this road of the renegotiation, is to reduce this artificial draw factor that's created by having a benefit system which draws extra people to the country because they can claim benefits from day one. We want people to come and work.
Is that a boost for British workers? Is getting rid of British workers and replacing them with foreign workers or driving down the wages of existing workers? It may be good for the big multinationals, it may be good for the type of people that fund the Conservative Party, but is it good for British workers and families? I don't think it is.
All right, hang on a second. The woman up there in black, yes.
Mr Farage wants to put all of the NHS crisis down to immigrants, and they're either completely naive...
£2 billion a year of it.
Can you just let me finish? Because you've had a lot to say already. You're either completely naive or very, very manipulative. The problem isn't immigrants, it's a factor, because there are people coming into the country, and that's fine, that's how we are working at the moment. But it's an ageing population, it's advantage in medical treatment, which means that people are surviving large strokes, they're surviving brain aneurysms, more than they ever did before. And what you're doing is really dangerous, but you can't see it, because you're so stuck in your rhetoric. And just because you've changed the way you speak and you're very careful with your words doesn't mean your message is any different to how it was 2 years ago.
All right, now hang on, Nigel, hang on. I want to come to this woman here. No, your turn, yes.
Just two things. You pointed out that two of the terrorists were British-born. That doesn't make you British. You don't know where your allegiances lie. And I mean, I'm Australian, and I guess mine lie with Australia. So that is one point. And the immigration point of view is too, OK, if we need more people to do jobs, we encourage our people to do them. We train them. We bring up our children with a good work ethic. Not that the government owes you a living. That will change the scene of things. And yes, immigration needs to be controlled, and it needs to be controlled by a sovereign nation out of EU.
All right. Yes.
We've heard a lot of arguments about Britain leaving Europe in terms of immigration, but I think we need to look at the fact it will have, especially on Wales. This building right here was made and built with EU funding, and a lot of other places in Wales rely on that EU funding. I was just wondering how you expect the Welsh Assembly to run without that extra funding, considering the current Conservative government is cutting Welsh Assembly budgets, and I can't see them fully subsidising the EU funding if we were to leave.
All right. Leanne Wood, I'll come to you. Leanne.
Well, I'm in no doubt that it's in Wales's best interests to remain as a member of the European Union for many of the reasons that you've just outlined. But the question is specifically about immigration. And I think we have to separate the types of immigration that we're talking about. So when we have free movement of people within Europe, there are positives and negatives for that. There are 1.2 million people from Britain living in other parts of the EU. So there's a balance to be struck there. But the other immigration that is not related to membership of the EU is the people who have come in from countries like Syria and who are escaping war, and they have come here as refugees. So we need to differentiate between the two groups of people.
What are the negatives? You said there are positives and negatives from EU immigration.
Well,
What's the
the
negative?
point about driving down of wages for unskilled workers is a fair one, I think. But I would say that that would be dealt with by strengthening trade unions and making sure that everyone has a living wage, not by pulling out of the European Union.
But doesn't a higher wage attract more people or not?
More will come
One of the points is this. The government is fiddling around with benefits. I mean, it's almost irrelevant. The Cameron renegotiation is pathetic. So we'll limit benefits for 4 years, and after 4 years, benefits will be the same as they are now. But the point is this. One of this government's flagship policies is to take the minimum wage and to turn it, at the end of this Parliament, into a living wage. It's a very, very substantial increase. But the point is, what that will actually do is drag in even more migrant labour. So the numbers coming to Britain will go up and not down.
All right, you in the third
Mike, can I
row.
just say this, though? My concern about this debate, right, is that the way in which the scaremongering takes place and the way in which we're all encouraged to divide and rule. And while we're all blaming immigrants for all of our ills, our eyes are not looking at those people who are very, very wealthy, avoiding tax. And if they were paying the right tax, there'd be enough resources for everyone.
Okay.